you want to see some shotguns? You're about to see every single shotgun from every first-person shooter made. The old games are being brought up to 4K 60, while the newest titles are all at maximum settings. Let's begin. Yes, this video series begins with Doom. The first shotgun to appear in a true first-person shooter sets a decent bar to be met way back in 1993. Let's look at the 5 categories that make this weapon. First, the model. A literal toy model scan here looks convincing on screen and probably holds the title of people's very first FPS shotgun experience. This is what a generation of gamers grew up imagining what it looked like to wield a shotgun. Onto the sound, that shot and pump sound effect are ingrained in many people's minds as the first sound of firing a shotgun in an FPS, and it still holds up pretty well today, if not a little lo-fi by today's standards. Next up, the animation. It does this well with what limited resources would have been on offer at the time. It's not spectacular, but gets the job done. Now, the projectile. This is what makes the gun feel so good. You get a tight spread when firing, letting you take on close and medium range targets. That line of pellets you spray is just perfect. A good aim takes down regular enemies on one shot. Visibility of hits is also well done and, as you will see later in this video series, is actually better than a lot of modern games will put in. Them little sprites showing a spark and poof of smoke, it's still neat to see today. The 5th and final category now. Impacts on enemies. For each pellet you get a visual confirmation via a splat of blood falling to the ground, a flinch animation will temporarily stun the enemy, as you would expect when being shot, and that classic audible demon groan. So, with Doom, it's been a good start for shotguns in first-person shooters. Not the greatest by all means, but it's one hell of a good job. System shock. Right, let's get this one over quickly. It's a Riot gun, firing rubber slugs. The gun model is tiny. The sound effect is extremely minimal. Animation-wise, there's almost none. The projectile is also very simple. It deals comically low damage, but it is funny to push things around and repeatedly stun enemies. But we are making Doom look pretty terrific now, right? This is the lowest score we will see, but greatness awaits. What a sound! The sense of power you have each time that sound effect hits your ears. Doom 2's Super Shotgun is legendary at this point. This amazing sound couples with an expansive spread of pellets, allowing you to down multiple enemies at once. Developer id cements its place in history with this one. The model itself on screen isn't actually amazing. It does enough to give you a sense of these 2 menacing barrels ready to go. The animation though, just perfect. It's probably harder to get the animation right with fewer frames than you would like to have had, but they get it just right with the timing and that glorious reload sound effect. The impact on enemies is a notch higher now, as you can line up more foes and put them down in one shot. It adds a little more tactical play in this respect, as well as the risk-reward payoff for going in point blank to get a 100% knockout punch. You definitely get that ultimate badass feeling with this gun. At the time, this was simply the best. Still feels amazing today, and that sound will never, ever grow old. Terminator Future Shock. This shotgun gets top marks for the 2D animation. It's quite lovely to use, very smooth, and pops off shots just when you expect them after pumps. And as you will see later in this video series, that's something this gun does better than some games made 10 years later than this. That's about where the praise ends, I'm afraid. Everything else is quite weak. The model doesn't particularly look like much on screen. It's not got a punchy sound effect, and I guess it's firing solid slugs as there is no spread on each shot, so you need pinpoint accuracy to take down enemies, making it a bad choice for skeet shooting these little drone guys. Unfortunately, you never really know if you landed a hit, as the projectile visual feedback is tiny, and I didn't notice any sound effect feedback either, which is terrible. But maybe as this was the first FPS to feature true polygonal enemies, it just wasn't easy to add in. The gunplay is poor, and not something I'd be in a hurry to play again. Marathon 2 Durandal. The model here looks passable, and is animated neatly enough too. The weapon sound effects needed to be stronger though, and louder, but when you hit certain enemies it does make a nice satisfying crunch. Its projectiles have a decent look and spread when hitting environments and enemies. Impacts on enemies are not bad, you get audible and visual cues, but nothing amazing. Still early days of FPS gaming here, but a notable entry into the list of shotguns. Alien Breed 3D2, The Killing Grounds. 3D double barrel shotgun. It's a perfectly acceptable shotgun too, but the model is very minimal. Animation is okay, nice and quick, not sluggish like 3D can easily become. It doesn't sound very good though, way too lo-fi. The projectile takes down minor enemies in one blast, but is a repetitive chore against larger enemies. It's probably worth giving it a miss. It hasn't aged well. Duke Nukem 3D. This shotgun packs much more of a wallop than most so far. The model looks decent, was pretty realistic at the time if you can believe that. The shot sound is brilliant, along with the hit sound effects on enemies and environments. The animation is your standard handful of frames for 2D weapons, nothing amazing but does the job. The projectile is very well done here. It's a tight spread, so you'll be taking enemies on one at a time, but your rate of fire is high enough to keep crowds in check with some skill. The pellet sprites and subtle enemy knockback is done really well, conveying a real sense of weight to each shot. You also get the necessary audio feedback, and the enemy death animations are done really well. It all adds up to a satisfying alien-busting shotgun experience. Alien Trilogy. What a mixed bag this one is. Looks dodgy, and the projectiles seem to be trapped in bullet time. But even though the gunplay is completely broken, it still has some fun about it. Like having a nightmare but gaining some control over your actions, allowing you to fight back. The shotgun has one crunchy sound to it too, which is surprisingly satisfying, with a good rate of fire and eventual impact on enemies. Over the course of this janky game, however, you will tire of using this pretty quickly. Quake. This one looks neat and has such a nice sound to it. There's a real rhythm in the rate of fire too, and along with staggering the enemies with each hit, it makes for some excellent gunplay. It feels great picking off the smaller enemies, making them flinch just enough before hitting with a deadly blow. Concerning the lack of animation, what is there is smooth and serves the gameplay well enough. It's a bit of a chore against larger enemies, however, which are bullet sponges when using this weapon. It's a quality shotgun, but you will be yearning for more power pretty soon. Which brings us on to the Super Shotgun. It's really the same deal, just bigger sound and bigger spread of pellets at a lower rate of fire. The lack of manually reloading both barrels always felt like a step backwards to me at the time. Now we're able to jib smaller enemies, however. and stagger the larger ones. My only gripe is that, unlike the super shotgun in Doom 2, you can't take down multiple enemies in one shot. It was always exhilarating to see 3 or 4 demons collectively fall to one determined flash. Everything in Quake feels rock solid, which is great for that real 3D feeling, but does give some of the enemies a hard-as-nails quality to them. Similar to its little brother, this is a quality shotgun, but not the best in class. That's all for this episode. See you in the next one. Hit subscribe for more.